And hello, everybody. This hangout is now live. Welcome back to Talking About Survivor. I'm Christiana Ellis.
And I'm Mike Mateen, and this is our first Survivor of season 30?
Yeah, 30. Although, anytime I tell that to someone who doesn't watch Survivor, they always get weirded out for a second because, of course, most TV shows, when you talk about the number of seasons, they don't do 2 seasons per year, and so they were like, it's been on for 30 years? No, 2 seasons per year. But still, that's still a lot of seasons. That's still a lot of years to be on the show.
Yeah, that's 15 years of show. So.
So we weren't able to make the scheduling work for our pre-show this year, but that's fine because I thought that this premiere episode did a pretty good job of introducing us to some of the key players there. And it's not like our pre-shows were ever especially useful in terms of gleaning real insight.
My notes for what I would have said in the pre-show are that Joaquin is kind of a douchebag, Vince is creepy, and who's that guy with the beard?
Max?
Yeah, he seemed like he was going to push everybody's buttons. So those were my big notes from the pre-show. So I don't know if I was right or not. We'll have to review the shit.
Yeah, well, I think at the very least 2 of those are right.
I'm kidding. I didn't actually think those in the pre-show. That's kind of what I picked up from this episode.
I don't think I didn't especially notice Max pushing people's buttons, although I suppose...
The big postal worker guy?
Oh, that's not Max, though. That was Dan.
Dan.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I was confused.
He pushes people's buttons.
See, if you had said the guy with the mustache, I would have thought of him, but Max had a more distinctive beard in my memory, so
interesting.
With that being the only clue.
I'm going to pull up the cast list just so I have it. So that we're talking about names, I'm putting the faces to them.
So
go ahead and keep going.
This season, the gimmick is blue collar versus white collar versus no collar, with the idea that all of the castaways, 18 total, are split into 3 teams of 6 by profession/lifestyle. So you got white collar, who are the people who are, businessy, positions of authority generally, not necessarily the one out there doing the hands-on work. Then you got blue collar, who are the people who are, nose to the grindstone. They're the ones out there getting work done, but they're not necessarily in charge. And then no collar is, the artsy, free spirit types that don't necessarily go for any of the traditional job roles out there.
Or as Jeff Probst sums it up very shortly, white collar makes the rules, blue collar follows the rules, no collar breaks the rules.
Yep. So I think it's, as these things go, I think it's a pretty interesting way to, to split it up. I honestly think it's a little bit better than the, my monitor is giving me weird trouble. Hang on just a second. My monitor just cut out on me. Here, you talk for a second. I figure out what's going on with my monitor.
Oh, yes, of course. I've looked up Max. Yes, that is a very distinct beard. I remember him now. I forgot his name. As things go, it's, like you said, it was interesting. The verdict's out on whether it's going to get old for me real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of them pushing it so hard is causing the cast to... which is an interesting thing from the whole reason we like this show, which is the social dynamics. Like, they're really owning those characterizations and probably acting more like that than they normally would on this show.
Yeah.
Which is intriguing now, but may get kind of obnoxious if they keep like pushing it, because some of them you can see they're reaching to behave a certain way because it's the the category that they've put into.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like the no color one, like they're not all like that all the time. Like there's sort of this group think going on that we're the free spirit, so we should do all this goofy stuff all the time, and you could tell it's kind of forced a little bit at times. And then the white colors are like, well, we should all be really aggressive all the time,
Mm-hmm.
And the blue colors are, they're the same thing. It's no one should be bossing anybody around. We should just be working hard, And so at least it's interesting at this point. I'm not fed up with it at all. But if it continues and people continue to push these stereotypes, it'll cease to be interesting to me and just be kind of obnoxious.
Well, I think it's very similar in structure to the one where they did brains versus brawn versus beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Although I feel like this one, compared to that, is maybe a little bit better because that one had so much of the baggage of it being difficult to actually define someone that way. You know what I mean? Like, you had plenty of people in the brawn tribe who were good looking. You had plenty of people in the beauty tribe who were also smart. You know what I mean? It's like it was harder to really put people into categories that way and have it be meaningful.
Right. And also, I think the stereotypes associated with those categories are fairly negative.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're in the brains, well, you're obviously not strong or smart, and if you're in the brawn, you're not smart at all. Like you're really stupid. If you're in the beauty, you're also stupid and not very, strong. Like it was harder to categorize because people weren't as willing to own it. Like they've put very positive connotations to these stereotypes, with the exception of the white collar. They've made that kind of a little aggressive, but the rest of them, they have positive associations, so people are even more willing to like own it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it makes it more interesting right now. So.
I agree. So I'm definitely liking it so far, but it's also probably true that the aggressive branding will last the first few episodes until they have a mix-up,
Yeah.
But so anyway, just to run down the tribes, we have the white collar tribe is in yellow, and I only have the vague phonetic pronunciation of the tribe names. I didn't look up the actual spellings or whatever, but it's something to the effect of Messiah, which I thought was a weird word name to choose, just like the sound, because I definitely remember it was not spelled like Messiah, like the religious term, but it definitely sounded like that when pronounced.
Yeah, it's spelled Masaya. So.
Yeah, well, so it's still Messiah,
yeah.
Which I like. I don't know. That was weird. But then included So, who was a buyer. Max, a professor, Carolyn, an executive, Joaquin, a marketing executive, Shireen, Yahoo executive, and Tyler with the weirdest little profession caption, which was ex-talent agent assistant.
Yes.
That was weird. Did he get fired right before he came on the show or something? What's with that ex-talent agent assistant? That's so strange.
It really was strange, and he just kept talking about, like, I used to work in one of the most aggressive, like, talent agencies in the nation.
And now what do you do? Why are you not doing that anymore?
He doesn't do that. And he was also, like, the way that it describes him as an assistant makes it sound like he wasn't really, like, that almost is like more of a blue collar,
Yeah, I don't know what it means.
In an office, but it's, yeah.
Yeah,
he was an executive.
Yeah, So that one was strange. That was definitely one of these pieces is not like the other.
Yeah.
But so then anyway, we also have the blue collar tribe in blue. No surprise there. Which was something like Eskameka.
Mm-hmm.
We had Mike, the oil driller, Lindsay, the hairdresser, Dan, the postal worker, who said in his introduction, "One way or another, you will not forget me." Rodney, who said, "People might think I'm a meathead, but I'm filet mignon, and they're a bunch of steakums." Definitely playing up the blue collar aspect I feel like a lot of working class accents in that tribe too. He was also the guy who's a general contractor, but he's pretending to just be a furniture mover.
Yep.
Which is one of the weirder things about pretending you're a different profession. But then there's Sierra, which I wrote down barrel racer, but I don't know what that is.
Which one was it?
Sierra?
Sierra was a barrel racer.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. That's presumably a job where you race barrels. Oh, okay. A rodeo thing seems like I would have guessed that being a no collar more than a blue collar, but I don't really know what it entails. So, and then we had Kelly. Well, I know what a rodeo is. I don't know what the barrel racer does as part of the rodeo. You don't know either, so don't pretend.
I don't. I had to look up what a barrel racer. I had to look up in the
bio. And then Kelly, who I don't recall seeing the caption for, so I don't remember what her profession was. And then, anyway, the red tribe, the no-collar tribe for Narote. We have Jen.
Kelly's a state trooper.
Oh, okay. So anyway, red tribe, Jen is a sailing instructor. Holly, who is in law school, but that was another one of the ones where they had to lean a little bit to try to say why she's no-collar for being a law student.
Yeah.
I'm not anarchy, I'm greater good. She's going to be a hippie lawyer, I guess.
Yes, that's what she was trying to get at, I guess.
Yes. Vince, the coconut vendor. Joe, jewelry designer. Will, quote, YouTube sensation, which was weird because at least the way he described it on the show, he was like he had one video go viral.
Yes.
So I have not looked this guy up. Does he have more popular videos than just the one, or was that really it?
As far as I could tell, it was the only one, and I'd never heard of him before.
Yeah, see, that's another one where I think sometimes some of these might have to stretch a little bit, because my guess is he has a day job.
Yeah, that his job is not YouTube sensation.
Well, there are plenty of people who make a lot of money doing YouTube videos, but they have more than one video go viral.
Yes.
And then, of course, Nina, the hearing advocate, who is completely deaf but has cochlear implants. And then those are our 18 castaways. And we had everybody divided up, but right off the bat, we get lots of choices to make in this episode. So the tribes have to choose a representative. And it was a nice acknowledgement to have Max in confessional point out that it's kind of like, yeah, I know better than to volunteer for something like that. There's no possible way that getting picked for that is going to be a good thing in this game.
Right, and he's like I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, like I don't want to say just an older version of Cochran.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a professor who teaches a class on Survivor. So, you know, he's definitely studied the game from that type of level like a Cochran had.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a little bit more grounded already. So.
Yeah, well, he's a little more mature. I mean, part of Cochran's whole thing was that he's kind of young and inexperienced.
That's true.
Um, but anyway, so white collar picks Joaquin, blue collar picks Dan because of wisdom, because he's old. That's the code.
Yes.
And then there are lots of jokes about no collar tribe not being able to decide, but I feel like that context was lost because we didn't really see them take a long time to decide. We just heard other people talking about how they were apparently taking a long time to decide.
Yes.
But anyway, they picked Will because he apparently promised to make them sandwiches, which was sort of charmingly weird, I thought.
Yes. Especially when Probst just put holes in that over the place.
Well, of course it's nonsense, and I think they know it's nonsense, but that's just, it's such a weird thing to promise when everybody knows it's nonsense that it's like, it's funny, you know? So they're picking him because he's funny more than anything. And he's apparently volunteering because he's offering to make them sandwiches if they pick him. So.
Well, I just like that whole exchange because it was funny. It was cute how they did that. It was good on his part because it allowed him to volunteer and take that leadership role without it being serious. You know, so he volunteered himself for this, but that doesn't make him like a target. I think he can deflect that because of like how they sort of came to it, and it was more of a joke than like he's the guy making the decision. And then of course I love that Probst just made sure that everybody knew it was pretty nonsense and kind of took a few little jabs at him, but good natured. You're just kind of like, what are you going to make him with? You know?
Oh, you know, whatever they want. So, and then in any case, the person picked first needs to pick a second person. So Joaquin picks which ultimately was not great for her in the long run.
She was also not great for her in the long run, but this didn't help.
Right. Dan picked Mike. Mike actually volunteered. And then Will picks Jen. And so the whole pair picking thing is that they have to go make a decision for their tribe, which is, let's see, before we get to that, I guess, we had a little bit that I enjoyed of the no-collar tribe talking about what, even before the pair splits off, they discuss, like, well, what might the choice be? Let's talk about what we as a group would want in various scenarios. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I wonder if the other tribes did anything like that. But so in any case,
yeah, it seemed that they mostly came to that you could choose like more food or shelter.
Yeah.
And you would have to make a decision between those two things. Like that seemed to be what they thought was going to happen. So.
But so in any case, the choice ends up being honesty or deceit. And so you can choose either a small bag of beans plus a clue for you, or a big bag of beans with no clue. So Will and Jen are the first up, and they don't really even seem to consider taking the clue. They just kind of, right off the bat, they're thinking, well, you know, at this point, better to stay strong as a tribe.
Yeah, too early is basically what their consensus, yeah.
Yeah, and so then Mike and Dan for blue collar talk about how villains win the game, although I think that's an oversimplification. But they also agree that even if that was going to be the case, it's too early to make that move. And so better.
They're much more tempted. And they decided like, hey, it's day one. Like, if this was near the end, we wouldn't hesitate the other way. Yeah. But let's not do that yet.
Right. But then
which was ironic because they get
Well, no, what were you going to say?
I was saying it was ironic because they eventually get accused of being deceitful because the tribe felt like the big bag they brought wasn't big enough, so it must be the small bag. Or some people on the tribe,
Yeah. Sierra, I think, was the one that was concerned about that. So then when we have So and Joaquin, and I'm going to just say right off the bat, even though this is kind of irrational, it's a little bit of a relief that So was voted off only just because it makes the grammar complicated. I tend to say so at the beginning of sentences, like, so they did this, and it was just weird when I was trying to incorporate her name into those sentences. Not that it's a big deal, but, it matters to me. I don't know. Anyway, so just then. So and Joaquin, they talk about how it's obvious that they should pick Deceit, but it's just a matter of trying to figure out what their story is going to be coming back. And So at that point seemed more reluctant, but also not willing to stand up to him about it.
Right. And he's one of the ones that, if this carries on, could get kind of frustrating, because I guarantee he doesn't completely act like this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he's just owning this like white-collar New York marketing executive stereotype makes him seem like kind of a douchebag, and it kind of annoying. Like, I'm sure he's not like that, and that's what's frustrating. So he basically bullies her into it. She didn't put up much of a fight. It wasn't like she didn't want to do it and he forced her to, but it was still a little bit of subversive bullying.
Yeah.
And so, it was the start of me not particularly, like, I want to like him because there are times when he does seem like he gets things and seems to really be into this game, and I want to root for people who are into the game, but he's into the game in the wrong way for me right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't especially like him. So in any case, what their story is when they go back to camp is that there were actually 3 choices, honest and deceit, which were actually what they really were, but they pretended that there was actually a middle choice of neutral, which was the middle. They pretended that the honest one with the big bag had some mystery penalty to it, and they didn't want to risk that, so they took the neutral one. So I thought it wasn't a bad story necessarily. It does seem vaguely plausible, but as Carolyn kind of points out in her confessional, it's like, no, why would they have a neutral one? Why wouldn't it just be honesty or deceit? The neutral one seems fishy. And of course she's right, but I think it's also a case of the story. It wasn't necessarily the story that was bad. I think that their presentation was bad, and it made people suspicious. Just because I feel like just the concept of that answer is not inherently bad.
Right, but by them not delivering it well is probably why Caroline started to think through a little bit more. Does that seem plausible? Because they seem a little sketchy right now. And that's where she came to the conclusion, it doesn't really seem plausible. I mean, it seems plausible, but not probable, because this is how it normally would be. And she wouldn't have even gone through those motions in her head if they didn't deliver it so poorly.
Mm-hmm. And so, honestly, this was a big chunk of what made So the target later, was this initial, first impression instance of, we're not sure we can trust you.
Yeah, it puts you on the outside right away.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So let's see. We have Blue Collar getting fire built without a flint pretty quickly, which was pretty cool. It's always nice when we see that. People have been prepared. And then we also had Rodney with the interesting story. He's talking about all his tattoos, and the interesting thing about, like, the story about finding his sister dead, which is, it's a sad story, of course, but it was a little bit weird that he kind of has this sad story, but apparently uses it to impress chicks.
Yeah, that was very strange.
Yeah. Because, Yeah, so I had mixed feelings about that. But I don't know.
It's his story, I guess. He can do it with it what he pleases, but it was weird. Yeah. I didn't like. He's odd.
Hmm.
I don't dislike him by any means, but he has some strange, stubborn beliefs. Like, it's cool to use this story to get chicks, and it always works. And I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm really super smart general contractor. I'm going to pretend I'm just a stupid builder. And okay. People tend to figure out if you're smart without you having a label.
Mm-hmm.
when you're in a group.
Yeah. Then we also had Mike cutting the stinger off of a scorpion and eating it. Tasted like crap, and then he throws it up. But I liked his take on that whole thing.
His enthusiasm?
Well, that and also just the way he described it himself later was that was maybe not the smartest decision, but I'm the kind of guy who, if he sees an opportunity, he takes it. He seems to be a leap before you look sort of guy, which I don't know can be fun to watch.
This was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Was like, he really is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't he just cook it in the fire?
Yeah, you could cut its stinger off and then make sure it's actually all the way dead too before you swallow it. I did also appreciate him yelling into the bushes, "That's just weakness leaving the body," as he throws up. So then over at No Collar, we have what I first describe as Vince and Jen bonding, and then later I say this is Jen tolerating Vince's attempt to bond with her.
Yes, and then not even doing that.
Yeah, he is super creepy. He is definitely one of those guys that he's got the whole thing, like the feathers in his hair and everything, and you sort of feel like he's the kind of guy who's gonna lean over a girl and say, "Don't you think it's hot that I'm such a free spirit? Tell me that you think it's hot."
Right, and then she will, just to appease him.
Yeah.
And then as soon as she talks to another guy, he'll start pouting and be like, "I don't understand why she thought I was hot." Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a red flag that she's kind of fickle. I need to go talk to her and confront her about her infidelities.
Yes, that was really crazy.
Yeah. Oh man. So anyway, and Joe didn't get along with him either. They were kind of rubbing each other the wrong way while trying to build shelter.
Because they were both dating the same woman.
Yeah. So we got Dan being kind of blunt and rubbing other people the wrong way over on Blue Collar, trying to build a shelter. I thought it was interesting that his insistence was they shouldn't use bamboo for the floor of their shelter because it's hollow and it'll split. I'm thinking, okay, one of the reasons bamboo is considered such a it's used for so many things is because it's actually really strong.
Yeah, I generally like him. I did not like this exchange from him.
Yeah.
I see people do it frequently, and I don't want to say that it's typically like it when they're not 100% sure, or it's almost like he feels like inferior or like not as smart, so he says it in such a condescending way to like make them feel stupid and make him feel smarter. Yeah. And I've seen that before, and I don't like it. I didn't like it when he did it. He just was very abrupt with them, very condescending, trying to make them seem really stupid. And then he tried to work a joke into it, but the joke was also told in a very condescending way. Mm-hmm. When he's like, I am a fat guy, and I will break this or something. I think he was trying to be funny, but he didn't say it funny. And so the whole exchange just kind of left me. Fortunately,
Yeah.
I liked him before that, and I liked him after that, so I kind of forgave this a little. But
Yeah, he seems like he is a very insecure guy to me.
insecure, that's
And
the word I was trying to describe.
yeah, it's both from that exchange where he's kind of blustering, but then also when it's clear that he has got people not liking him because of the way he's acting, he goes the other direction and becomes kind of sullen and quiet, and forcing people to say, you were so passionate a minute ago that we do it just like this, and now we're asking you if this is the way you wanted it, and you're acting like you don't have an opinion. That is also annoying. And then so he gets, stomps off into the jungle with a damned if I do, damned if I don't attitude, which I was really irritated with him at that point, just because I feel like I've dealt with people who act like that. Just this whole sort of feeling of like they stomp into a room and demand everybody do it their way, and if there's any resistance at all, they just sort of clam up and say, well, fine, I guess my opinion doesn't matter for anything around here. You're like, well, hold on. Maybe just have an actual conversation with people.
Yeah.
But I liked at least, though, that Mike went and kind of talked him down from some of that, and he did seem like he calmed down after that. So he was, I think, probably feeling insecure and a little bit stressed, and so maybe he'll be able to assimilate. So then back over at No Collar, we have Joe, who also says he practiced making fire without flint, and he succeeds. And my first note, actually, when he was still making it is, Jen is skeptical but thinks he's hot. And then, of course, he succeeds in making fire, and she's impressed, and cue, angry eyes from Vince from across camp.
She seems impressed with him. But we were together just a minute ago.
Yes, I need to go confront this woman that I just met and will be spending 24/7 with for the next several weeks. In the best case scenario, I need to go confront her that she is talking to another guy.
On our same team.
Yeah. Are you more attracted to Joe? Context is like subtext being more attracted to him than to me? How dare you? And she's just like, no. That's the answer you want, right? Can I go now?
Yeah. What does it matter? We're all on the same team working together and not here to hook up.
Yeah, and so then he finally lets her go, and then he's telling the cameras, like, I don't know if I can trust her. She seems kind of fake. And I'm like, dude, really? You forced her to lie to your face, because what is she supposed to say to you otherwise?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that guy seems like a real creep to me. Pretty. Yeah.
I'm interested to see more of him on the show. I don't want him to go first, like off their tribe, just because he's creepily entertaining right now. But not a big fan. I am a much bigger fan of Joe.
Yeah.
One of my early favorites. I like him a lot.
Yep.
Jen, I don't want to say she's a favorite, but I do like how she's handled herself in this situation. She was put in some uncomfortable situations and, navigated to the best of her ability, and, and is also not afraid to bail on that early alliance that he forced her into. And just reconsider her options. Like, she's going to say to what Vince wants to hear, but she's going to make sure she's also keeping an eye on what else is going on in the tribe. And, I thought she for a tough situation, she did well. So, but Joe is one of my early favorites in the season. So,
yeah, I like him too. I also like Jen.
yeah.
So this brings us to the challenge. I like how many choices they put in the challenge too. You know, choose knots or keys. Do you want the simpler puzzle with lots of pieces, or the more abstract, complicated puzzle with a few pieces? I liked that there were so many choices within the challenge. That was kind of cool.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting that all three tribes started with the locks, but then all switched to the knots.
Yep.
I mean, I think everyone switching to the knots probably was largely because, you know, like when the first tribe switches, the other two tribes have got to be thinking, do they know something we don't? Yeah, we should do that too.
Yeah, and then there's that belief that comes along with it that, oh, that worked for the other tribe, so that'll work for us. So there's more confidence going into it, so you end up being more successful. It worked.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think in general it makes sense that knots are kind of the safer path there, because although they could be a lot of work, they're pretty straightforward. Whereas the problem with the locks is it's very easy when you're trying each key to be so impatient that you could theoretically try the correct key and have it not work, and then think you've used that one already, and then have to go all the way around again, and then have to start over because you missed the right one, and then just keeping track of it like that, you know, that element of it is, of course, what, you know, makes it a difficult thing to do. But that, you know, with the knots, at least once you know, you're not going to ever have to start over, right? You're just
Right.
kind of, you know, you just have to power on through them. So finishes the knots first for the white collar tribe. They're pretty far ahead. Joe gets through them second for the no collar tribe. But the no-collar tribe closes the gap and takes the lead during the ladder obstacles. And then they chose the middle puzzle, which is the one that's visual. You know, so it's middle in terms of the number of pieces, but it's the one about can you recognize by sight where a piece needs to go. And then white collar, when they get to the puzzle, they choose the 50-piece puzzle that's simple in the sense that, you know, it's just about assembling a shape out of squares. But so let's see, for no color, Jen is the first to try the puzzle, but then she eventually lets Joe finish it. Shireen is working on the puzzle for white collar, but she does not do very well. She kind of panics, especially as they start to lose they're losing time. You know, when Probst starts talking about how you're panicking, that probably doesn't help you stop panicking.
No.
There was a weird bit where, like, blue collar couldn't figure out how they're supposed to hold up their ladder to get the puzzle pieces. And what immediately made me wonder is like I couldn't remember what the other two tribes had done. It's like, what did the other two tribes do for that? I don't remember. Because it's, you know, other than it, like, there's just the brute force of having everybody just hold the ladder up straight, which certainly works. But it also, I could understand feeling like, is there supposed to be a more elegant way to do that?
There wasn't. Yeah.
So blue collar also grabs the middle puzzle, the one shaped like a tree. And then so Joe leads no collar to first place immunity, which gives them the immunity and the big deal fire making kit. So that's another, you know, one of the things makes Joe, I think, an early favorite. He seems strong in challenges because he also did the knots.
Yeah, he powered him through the whole challenge.
Mm-hmm. So Max eventually swaps out Shireen for white color on the puzzle, and she actually, you see her in the background muttering, "I'm in deep shit." It's kind of like, oh yeah, we blew a lead because I screwed up what's supposed to be the easiest puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's also true though that it's important, I think, to recognize that when we play at home, that when we say, oh, that puzzle looked super easy, that, in the context of the game of Survivor, must make these things much harder, even so early on, and then, but, certainly as the game progresses, I'm just chewing on something, take that away from her. Certainly as the game progresses and people are hungry, it's just even more of an extreme difficulty.
Yeah.
Pressure's on.
And, and I think not that it would have helped them, but the way it was meant to shake out, like in the ideal world of the producers, was that they would have selected the one with the least amount of pieces, because that's the one that you have to like see the bigger picture, and they're the visionary, strategic, like white collar people. And the blue colors would have selected the visual, like one where you see the answer. And
I almost was thinking
no colors.
Yeah.
The blue colors would pick the one where you just work the hardest and get it done. That's how it was set up, and they choose that. So would they have done better if they'd chosen the other one? I don't know. But that was what the producers were expecting. So.
Yeah. So in any case, it doesn't matter that we, as the viewers, can cut Shireen some slack in the sense of the broader perspective of, yes, it would be hard to do a puzzle like that on TV show, but it's also a competition and everyone else is in the same boat, so she does still have to be judged against the other people there on the show. Mm-hmm. And if she lets her tribe down because she does poorly in a challenge, then that's a totally legit complaint. But it's also, as we saw, that is, generally speaking, not the only thing you have to worry about. So let's see. In any case, Mike had started the puzzle for blue collar, but then Sierra swaps out with him, and they come from behind to get second place, which is also immunity, and then also just a flint. So white collar will be going to tribal council. I know that in my own head, that's who I wanted to go, and I'm not sure if it's just the sort of like class warfare, like, oh, the executives, you want to make them suffer or something like that. I don't know if it was that or some, but I certainly, I didn't like Joaquin very much, and so I think part of me wanted maybe him to be the target, even though I think if I had thought about it, I would have realized it didn't seem likely for him to be the target.
I think it has to do with the way that, back to what we talked about with everybody owning the stereotype, that's the one that you're going to root against.
Yeah.
And it's absent of them as people. It's that stereotype, Even if you are a white-collar worker, you don't want to root for the tribe that's, the one that steps on people to get ahead, because you don't think of yourself that way and you don't act that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I was not rooting for them.
So, I keep doing this. I keep starting the sentence with "so" and then realize I'm going to be talking about "so." So declares the weakest links in the tribe to be Shireen and Carolyn. Shireen, for obvious reasons, because she had so much trouble on the puzzle, but then she was also arguing that Carolyn had, you know what, I'm just realizing I must have skipped something at some point, because there was the whole, idol stuff. Where did that happen in my notes? Did I skip it? Oh yeah, that was before the challenge when I skipped over it.
Yes.
So let's circle back to that, which is this was just before the challenge. We had White Collar also trying to make fire, but they were struggling. And then we have Joaquin and So going off to look for the idol. And I definitely wouldn't have wanted us to miss discussing this. I thought it was pretty great that Carolyn, who was already suspicious of them, followed them, saying, well, I know the kinds of things that they might hide an idol in, and if I can get to a general vicinity by following where they're looking, maybe I can find it. And then, of course, she does.
Yep.
And they don't even realize that she was following them. So they think they still have the only clue, so they're likely to keep looking, which she can still lean on. It was like, look at them, they're out looking for an idol right now. Whereas she actually has it. I thought that was great. Yeah, and it just goes to show how, things are not always, don't always work out the way they superficially seem designed to. So, like, the idea that you have a clue to an idol did not actually work out to their benefit in any way, because they they ended up making people suspicious and ended up leading someone else to finding the idol and making themselves look bad in the process.
Yeah.
So anyway, that happened. So Carolyn knows that even if people are targeting her, that she, in principle, could save herself with the idol. But you don't want to have to use the idol if you don't have to. So she does tell Tyler that she has it, and that's how she knows that no one else does. Because if she wants to target So,
yes, they need to know.
They have to make sure that everybody knows So's not going to pull out an idol and screw everybody up, right? And so, see, this is what I was worried about. She wants to target So because So is gunning for her. I think if it was all about Shireen, like if So had been all about just like, well, Shireen obviously is the one we need to send home, I wonder if Carolyn would have made the effort to save her the way she did. I think it was only the fact that So seemed more interested in getting rid of Carolyn, in what was probably a good instinct.
Yep.
So she gets Tyler on board. Shireen obviously is on board. Max seems close with both of them, but he doesn't have his mind completely made up. And it was interesting as they go to the first tribal council to have it just be right out in the open that they lied about that initial decision.
Right.
Like, they didn't even really deny it anymore.
No, because it was pretty obvious at that point.
Well, yeah, like at one point too, of just like if they're off looking for idols and everything, it's. So I wonder if they actually regretted making the choice they did. I would think they should.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, but see, at the same time, she might not have ever owned the fact that that had anything to do with it. You know what I mean? She might have come up with some other explanation for why they would have wanted her to be gone. Or she might have even just thought that it, like, I don't know. I guess it's the question of, do you blame yourself for a poor execution or do you blame yourself for a poor decision?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we didn't see enough from her, so, and I haven't watched any like post interviews, so
yeah.
Who knows?
Well, and then there's also the whole element of her slipping out with the idea of the four of us are really strong, and everyone else going, it's like, oh, so it's not just the fact that you're trying to target one person, but you're going to get ahead to go ahead and target two of them. but you can only get one of them out now, and you've just told the other that they should not vote with you because you you want to get rid of them. Even though it seemed like it was common knowledge, like nobody seemed really surprised that they would say that so much as they just wanted to call her on something.
Yeah.
There's the arguing about Carolyn saying, that told me I wasn't the target. It was interesting and a little bit of a, when they started going back and forth to, like, Carolyn was trying to imply that, it's not any big deal that So did the knots in the challenge because anyone could have done that. And it was interesting that Tyler, who had seemed ostensibly on Carolyn's side here, kind of had to take issue with that, which I thought was fair by saying, like, well, in theory, maybe anyone could have, but she's the one who did, and we were ahead at that point.
Yeah, it would have been better to say, yes, she was very good at the knots, but realistically, how many times are we going to have to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be the thing we need someone for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as we get to the votes, it is 4-2. So is eliminated. I didn't look it up, but my guess is that the other vote for Carolyn was from Joaquin.
Yeah, that's my guess. I didn't look. Didn't pay attention either.
Mm-hmm. But in any case, So goes home, and I will be freed of awkward grammatic sentences in future recaps. Yeah, I was glad. I certainly didn't want Carolyn to go. I mean, not that it was likely once she found the idol, but she definitely seems like she's a fighter in this game, which I like. She's smart, and she's, yeah.
I was just agreeing with you. I was talking over you to agree with you. She's smart. I mean, she figured out that the reasoning behind why it was definitely a lie, and the logic behind it. She figured out how to find the idol. She made a great case for why So should be the one to go out and convinced and shared the idol with just enough people to make it convincing. She handled herself in a situation where she, where typically people either scramble or just clam up because they have the idol. She maneuvered it very well where it never felt like either one, So I like her, and I'm glad that she stayed,
Yeah, me too. And So getting voted out felt a little bit like instant karma, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the sense of, although I think really if we wanted to talk about karma of that initial decision, Joaquin was really the one that pushed for them to make the decision that they did.
Yeah, but he's not the kind of person that's going to get voted out right at the beginning because he is stronger and, so.
Well, and, it's an interesting question. If we want to put ourselves in So's shoes for a moment, when faced with this initial decision, it's not even just about, well, which decision do you think is the right one, but when faced with an alpha male type who has clearly decided which way he thinks you should go, the question now for you is not even a matter of, well, do you agree with him or not, but rather, do you decide to go along with him or stand up to him? Because it might be one of those things where even if you really think he's wrong, is it the right thing to antagonize him?
Yep.
You also have to sort of keep in mind that, if you agree with him and decide to have that be your in, you've just formed your bond with someone who, right in the very first decision of the game, is choosing to lie to people for his own benefit.
Yeah, it was a tough spot for her.
Yeah. But, you know, in any case, I think that she didn't do anything extreme to merit being voted off per se, but she certainly did some risky play and didn't execute it sufficiently well. And I think Carolyn outmaneuvered her.
Yep.
Which is kind of cool.
That seemed to be how it went down.
Mm-hmm. So for a 90-minute episode, we kind of went through that relatively quickly, although certainly with the first episode, you know, we're kind of still learning people. We haven't really seen what the larger strategy is going to be yet. There wasn't really a lot of strategy in this episode, still kind of people meeting up with each other.
Right. I feel like they took the 90 minutes to give us a lot of character exposition, which was nice because it gave some real depth to these people, but at the same time, does that lead to much, you know, we don't have to talk about it for an hour and a half, so.
Yeah. So I think that probably does it for this time. I think in her final words, So talked about being embarrassed to go out first, which, you know, understandable. And then next time it implies that I think it was Nina is feeling isolated on her own tribe, and she says something to the effect of, like, I can't believe our Free Spirit tribe is not welcoming me in, or something like that. But I don't know, I couldn't help but just think it's like, I'm not sure really, like, artsy types are not necessarily the types that all get along with each other and never bother each other. You know, artistic types are stereotypically temperamental and emotional, which is not always a kumbaya, you know, everybody get along sort of thing.
No.
But anyway, we'll see. Yeah. And at the same time, though, I feel like with Vince already set up as being kind of a creepy guy with a number of red flags, I was a little surprised to think that someone else would end up on the outs with the tribe.
Or maybe she's being temperamental and isn't actually on the outs.
Yeah, could be.
We'll have to see.
Maybe she's overreacting to something. All right, well, I guess we'll see. We'll be back for the next episode. And so thank you, everybody, for listening and or watching, and we'll talk to you later.
Yep.